Welcome, everybody, to our latest episode of Scream Creeps, where this week we're going to return to our top 35 scariest movies according to science series on the podcast, where this week we're going to talk about number 24, which is the movie Alien. Alien, as everybody may know, is a 1979 science fiction horror film, so we're kind of on that brand right now with these science fiction movies. But it was directed by Ridley Scott and written by Dan O'Bannon. It was based on a story by O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. It follows the crew of the commercial...
Shusett?
Yeah. It follows the crew of the commercial space tug Nostromo, who, after coming across a mysterious derelict spaceship on an uncharted planetoid, find themselves up against an aggressive and deadly extraterrestrial set loose on the ship. We'll talk about that more during the podcast. But the film stars Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Ian Holm, and Yaphet Kotto. It was produced by Gordon Carroll, David Geiler, and Walter Hill through their company Brandywine Productions and was distributed by 20th Century Fox.
Say her name again.
Which name? It was the company. Oh, Ripley.
No,
I didn't even say her name character yet, or her name yet.
Oh, no, not
Sigourney Weaver's the actor.
Sigourney. You're calling Sigourney. It's Sigourney Weaver, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I may be pronouncing it wrong, but
Sigourney. Yeah, I thought.
Quit making fun of my speech here, dude. Anyways.
Stop making fun of me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Geiler and Hill revised. And made additions to the script. Shusett was the executive producer. The alien and its accompanying artifacts were designed by the Swiss artist H.R. Geiger, which, if anybody knows his work, you can really tell. While concept artists Ron Cobb and Chris Foss designed the more human settings. The movie premiered on May 25th, 1979 as the opening night of the 4th Seattle International Film Festival, presented in 70mm at midnight. It received a wide release on June 22nd and was released on September 6th in the UK. At the time of release, it was met with mixed reviews on release, but it was a box office success. It made $184 million at the box office.
By critics?
It doesn't really specify that, but I would assume reviews would be by critics.
Before Rotten Tomatoes, so it was mostly critic reviews.
It won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, 3 Saturn Awards for Best Science Fiction Film, Best Direction for Ridley Scott, and Best Supporting Actress for Cartwright, which is
Best
interesting.
Direction? All right. As a director.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And a Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Since then, it's been widely considered one of the greatest and most influential sci-fi and horror films of all time. In 2002, Alien was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress and was selected for preservation in the U.S. National Film Registry. In 2008, it was ranked by the American Film Institute as the 7th best film in the sci-fi genre and as the 33rd greatest film of all time.
I wonder what the first 6 are for sci-fi.
I didn't look those up, to be honest with you. Probably Close Encounters is one of them.
Probably.
The success of Alien spawned a media franchise, obviously, of films, novels, comic books, video games, and toys. It also was what launched Sigourney Weaver's acting career, providing her with her first lead role. The story of her character's encounters, we'll talk about that, with the alien creatures, but it became a thematic and narrative core for the sequels, Aliens, which was made in 1986, which we actually covered on Sci-Fi Graveyard, one of our other podcasts. Alien 3, which was made in 1992, and Alien Resurrection, which came out in 1997. And then a crossover with the Predator franchise produced Alien vs. Predator films. Alien vs. Predator in 2004 and Alien vs. Predator Requiem in 2007. A prequel series includes Prometheus, which came out in 2012, and Alien Covenant, which came out in 2017, which were both directed by Scott. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started, but wanted to mention the next podcast we'll be doing on Sci-Fi Graveyard is actually going to be the first Predator film. So to go along with this one, we'll be talking about Predator on that podcast.
For horror month, man.
Yep. So with
the
that,
spooky bookies.
We'll go ahead and get started on what, our thoughts on the movie after watching it. I don't know when the last time you guys watched it before this time, but I know it had been a while for me.
Yeah,
so.
It had been a while for me too. But it actually does make sense, especially with the first probably 45 minutes to an hour of the film, why it's on this list. Because I was feeling, I've seen the movie before, and I could feel my heart rate going up, and slightly anxious, like I felt anxiety. So it definitely, you already knew what's happening, and you still get a little rush because
and I don't want to skip ahead because we typically talk about these in stages, but I do know the one part that I really felt it was the part where Ash basically dies.
Ash
obviously
dies?
Yeah, when the alien comes out of his chest. That
I
part,
thought it was Kane.
Oh, that's not
Wasn't
Ash.
Kane?
Sorry, Kane. Yeah, Ash is
Kane,
the
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I said the wrong
say,
name.
yeah.
John
that
Hurt's
whole-
character.
Yeah, that whole
I
part
said the wrong.
is, like, I remember, it just always that part I always remember out of this movie just because it was this, and then directly, I don't remember how late or past or whenever Spaceballs released. Sorry, I'm
Get it out, bro.
But
Get it
whenever
out.
Spaceballs released, where they even had that in the movie where John Hurt was in there, and then he's like, "Oh no, not again!" and it bursts out of his chest again, and then it does the musical number. So every time, I'm like, that's the main thing that I remembered out of the movie, because it's been, I think, about 10 or 15 years since I watched it last. I haven't watched it in a long, long time. So I didn't remember hardly anything except for some of the jump scares.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't point out to begin with was the budget for this movie was $11 million. And when I compare this, like I think we talked about it on the last one we did with Poltergeist, where we talked about the budget for that one. And then you see, I think they spent the same amount on this movie, and the sets in this movie were incredible. I was like, and when I saw 11 million, which in today's dollars equates to 46 million. So
I'm wondering about the special effects as far as how much of it was done with models, like small models and everything like that, and then they had the huge sets for inside the capsules.
Oh, I get it, but yeah, I mean, I was even talking about the planetoid part when they first went onto the planet and they were walking around, and the dude when Kane fell in that vastness of that area, that it was like, holy crap!
You're talking about the pod room. The pod room.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's like just.
All right, let's go back to the beginning though, because
I know. I was just talking.
I mean, this is one of his. It was his breakout film, right? That he wrote and directed and everything like that. So the story was just amazing in itself, and like you didn't get much character development. There were hints and stuff, but in the first act, like it definitely was telling a story of how they were getting to the point of getting to the ship and whatnot. And like let's say with the two guys that were just asking for bonuses, and they were just, you knew they were just there for the money. Everybody else, so it was kind of, that was the only little bit of you getting to know any of the characters when you think about it. In the entire thing, it was just those two bickering about getting bonuses. And that's all you knew
Yeah,
about
as
these
far
people.
yeah, as far as Ridley Scott, what you had mentioned this being his breakout film, I think it's pretty much was because the first one he made was called The Duelist, which I've never heard of. But then after this, it was like when he started making all types of stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he made Blade Runner 3 years later. He made
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Legend in
yeah,
'85. He made
Oh,
Someone to Watch Over
he
Me.
made Legend with Tom Cruise?
yeah.
Yeah, he
Oh, okay. I
And I
didn't
didn't
know
Someone
that.
to
even
Watch
realize.
Over Me.
Oh,
Someone to Watch
sorry.
Over Me, Black Rain. He made Thelma and Louise, which I did not realize he made that movie.
Whoa, I didn't think that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
1492, White Squall, G.I. Jane. The one I remember that he made is Gladiator. I remember
Yeah.
that one was
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
his, but he's made all types of stuff when you look at his
Yeah, that
list.
is
It's crazy.
interesting. That was a grand one, Gladiator. But anyway, we can
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
go
just
on with
going
it.
off of what you had mentioned about it being
Hmm.
his first film,
His
but
breakout, yeah.
yeah,
But I mean, the entire first act was all leading you to the point of them getting on the planetoid uh,
yeah,
thing, you know. So once they got there, that's when the story or when the actual plot started getting good. So the first act was actually pretty slow. It was slow going because you weren't learning anything about anybody, and then
agree.
once they get on that planet, that's when shit starts to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, go ahead, guys.
Oh. Yeah, pretty much most of the Act One was mostly all backstory to get to the planet and them to check out the ship, which was mostly
Well,
from
what backstory was
the
there?
that they were going to, what was it? They were supposed to make it back to their home planet, and then Mother recognized a transmission or something from the planet, and that's why essentially they were
Okay,
woken
maybe
up
I
two
guess you didn't
weeks.
mean backstory because that's not a backstory. That's just
Well,
the plot leading
well,
them
I
to
was,
that.
yeah, I was saying like the reasoning why they were going to the planet in the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
place, especially why they woke up. I think they said 2 weeks early, right? Or
Hmm.
before
That's why
they
they
were,
stopped.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
they were halfway through their trip, and then Mother woke them up because they were getting not a distress signal. That's what they
It
said
was
it
some
was a
transmission
distress
or
signal.
something that they
Yeah, yeah.
decoded
It was
or
going
tried
off
to
every
decode.
12 seconds. Yeah. So it was interesting though. But
Yeah,
anyway,
watching the
let's go.
movie.
Shit, getting into the second act. The first act really isn't much. That's just leading them to when they got to the planet, and then all of a sudden you got Kane just being a curious little bunny to get to this egg room, or the first one where all three of them go in, and then you see this huge giant like alien in a well, what would you call that? It's almost like a lounge chair, but he was like kind of
Yeah, it was like not the cockpit, but
the
like the
cockpit. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
control, the
yeah, yeah,
control
yeah.
for
Control
the
center
ship.
for the ship. Yeah.
Yeah,
But the only reason I say that is because I've seen Prometheus.
I
So
know. I was
looking
just
at
gonna
it
say this.
Yeah, yeah.
looking at it from a perspective of you don't know what the hell it is, it just looked like this thing that was just kind of glued to this seat, and it all it was kind of looking like bones, and then something burst out of its chest. I want to know. I mean, side note. I want to know how big that fucking alien was that popped out of that thing's chest. Because I mean,
Oh yeah.
being human, I guess it really doesn't matter. It's going to be the same size, right? Because the organism itself grows up to its full maturity, regardless.
Yeah, and it seems
So
like
it's
it grows really.
genetics.
Is it
Friggin'
me
fast.
or
That
it
was one
grows
thing I want.
fast? Yeah,
No,
that's
that was one thing I wanted to talk about. That was one of
yeah,
the anyway. So we're getting to the second act now.
yeah.
So yeah, Kane. They get into that room, and then Kane goes off on his, or they see a hole in the ground leading them down to a second level, and Kane gets thrown in that thing. Not thrown. It's not like they threw him in it.
He
He
like
was
trips. He was talking about
no,
the
no,
bit.
no, 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 no. They
Oh,
they have a rope. He's spelunking in this bitch. So he gets uh uh spurlunked down.
well, he gets dropped down into he gets he gets
They take a
dropped
rope and
down.
let him
Yeah.
down this huge freaking 30 feet drop down to the lower level that has a crap ton of these eggs all over the place. And then, of
Yeah, and that
course,
was
this
one of
little
the
turd.
better special effects that I remember
Oh yeah, having
watching. It was, yeah,
the holographic laser and then the
Oh yeah.
fog.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that was slick. That was
yeah,
definitely slick.
yeah, and then not only that, the eggs themselves. I mean, because when they
Hmm.
opened up and what was in them, I mean, it looked. I mean, considering this was back in '79, so I was 2 years old when this movie came out. The special,
Mm.
and I said it at the beginning, the special effects were top notch. Because I don't know, like this movie, if they redid it today, I don't know the difference would be. A
It
lot of
would
it
be
would be
CG.
CGI,
Yeah.
but this was not.
CG.
None of it could have been because they didn't have. They barely had computers then. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
and they weren't that powerful. I mean, our iPhones are more powerful than the computers they had back then. But yeah, I mean, it's that when that egg opened up and he looked inside it and the
Hell, even looking at the egg from the outside, how they made it this translucent looking
Yeah.
thing to where you can see
oh
inside of it.
yeah,
Like
that's
that
what I'm talking
alone
about. I
was
mean,
like
yeah,
slick. Like it was
yeah. I
like,
mean
whoa.
the whole
Yeah.
thing, and that's
Which
what.
was
Hmm.
oh sorry.
No,
Like
go ahead, Josh.
and that's one thing that I don't think that they did in the other movies was just how transparent they showed the egg was when he was looking at it. He was like, "Ooh," and you could see the face hugger, which I don't think they ever like said it. It was a face hugger the whole series. I don't think.
No, I
Maybe in
think that's probably just
Aliens,
what
I
people
but
think
like
named
that's
I
it
think
what
that's
people
what
named it.
people
Yeah.
named it. Yeah, yeah.
because that's what
So
it
like,
did.
yeah, you generally look at it and like all the other movies. I don't think that they made it like look like if they were staring right at it that it was translucent at all. Like it would just pop out and just go on your face. So
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know.
I
It's
don't
kind
know,
of
I
a.
mean, I would have to recheck through some of the other movies, but
but I also
I'm
don't
not
know.
so sure. I think that was just part of the effect that they had for the viewer to see what was inside. I'm not so sure that he himself saw it that way because he knew
oh,
an
true
organism
that,
was
yeah,
inside because it might have been moving or anything like that. He's like, "Oh, it's alive. There's an organism in there." But I think that was mainly like you see how CGI is now to where they'll actually make it transparent, like you're seeing through it, like friggin' Superman. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Where
yeah,
you see it that way, but that's not how he sees it. So
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought that was a slick special effect.
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
totally agree. Though, like I said, it was amazing to me when I compare the movies that we have watched in this time frame. Because I even
Yeah.
talked about Star Wars, but honestly, Star Wars had a lot of the space effects. But besides that, it was a lot of set driven stuff where the prosthetics, like for the aliens that they had, or like the other species, were top notch. But they didn't have like it wasn't like this where the entire set. I mean, and I'm not like I said when they went on the planet was a certain way, but then even on the ship, all the different areas they had on the ship that they were going
Hmm.
to. I think the cheapest looking spot to me was when Dallas or Tom Skerritt's character was in the air ducts and Ripley was shutting the vents off, and they were like these spinny looking. Yeah, that was
yeah,
the cheapest looking thing to me. But other than that, everything else looked like what you would imagine a ship looking like. And even
Hmm.
when they design them for games and stuff today, that's what they look like. They don't,
yeah,
and considering this was 41, what is it, 42 years ago or whatever? 44 years ago? Jesus.
yeah.
I'm an accountant and I keep fucking up the math. But anyway,
Especially
but
if you play the game Alien Isolation, everything looks about the same. Like, unlike
Maybe they're
I think
just
it might
trying
be
to
a
keep
bit different
continuity and
because the
everything.
ship, but yeah, I think
yeah,
they were
it's
trying
just
to fit to
incredible.
the
But
theme.
well, yeah, I get for Alien Isolation. I'm just talking about anything else. Like you talk about Dead Space, or even like, and I know I'm digressing a little bit, but it hasn't really changed in 44 years. So
Yeah,
it's kept up
Hmm.
with the time, which you can't really say that for a lot of things. Because we talked about Superman and stuff like that before, where you know when you look at Superman back in the '70s, the very first one, and how slow he flies,
It's
and then you
changed
compare it
quite
to
a bit. Yeah.
you compare it to Man of Steel with the CGI. They can do so much more with that. This one, I don't think they could have done much different. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and Prometheus was kind of a good example. What they did with Prometheus, and we're not really talking about that, was more of the it wasn't even the ship aspect of the stuff looked the same in that. It was the other
Yeah.
stuff that looked more up to date. I won't spoil that because we're not talking about that movie, but yeah, I mean, so anyways, that was just my biggest impression of the movie. Now, yeah, like you said at the beginning, though, throughout this movie, I could see my heart rate, even though
Mm-hmm.
this was one of the first ones we've watched where I was kind of anxious for a good amount of it.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
more anticipation because you
Yeah,
knew
and
what
that,
was
yeah,
coming. So you
Yeah.
were anticipating it, and then your heart rate got up just because you were
mm,
anticipating.
yeah,
Like fight or flight mode was just about a hair there, and then the jump scare happens or whatever, and then you're like, oh, that was a letdown.
yeah,
So it was more like your imagination playing with you. Not that
yeah,
they were bad, but it was just how much emphasis you put into it in your brain. So,
Oh
it's,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
going on. So the surprising part about the start of the second act and when Kane gets into the egg part is that immediately after the egg unveils for the quote unquote face hugger, like as soon as it jumps out and latches onto him, you see smoke, and then the surprise to me was they jumped. They just completely cut from there,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they went to when just they found him and took him back to the ship. That was the most surprising part because it was
hmm
like I maybe it's because we've seen movies that go more in depth and everything like that, and it's like that's what I wanted to an embellishment on. But I guess he still wanted to keep it a mystery of what was happening because the
hmm
real uh, well, I guess the second act hasn't really started yet. This was what's leading in because the second act
Yeah.
truly starts when
Truly, I
with
think
what
that the stuff with Kane after that was really the second act when
when
they're
yeah
talking about
when
him
the
being in
alien comes out.
quarantine and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, when I
Essentially,
brought
that's
that
like
up a
the
while
second act.
ago,
Yeah.
I kind of
Hmm.
skipped the whole first act
No,
when I
no, no.
mentioned that, but it
That's
was
okay. It's from '79, man. I'm sure most people if they even watch this, this will be one that they. But
well, yeah, it's the iconic scene. I would say that, and the
mhm.
one that happens later, I would say
Yeah.
is what.
So in between that, I mean, let's just skip to that because everything else is more like, oh, should we let him on the ship? Should we not? Of course you shouldn't let him on
Well,
the
I
damn
mean,
ship.
yeah.
Of
Like
course you shouldn't.
Ripley was the smartest person that was on the ship, hands down. Was because how she was
Well,
like, "Oh yeah, you
Well, she
don't know
was
about this
following
shit.
protocol.
You should."
I was
Yeah.
just gonna, yeah,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think it was only really, and you find out, and I don't know if we're there yet, but you find out why the other one didn't follow
Yeah,
protocol.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, we're
Yeah.
not. We're not
Yeah.
there yet.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So I mean, so I
anyway,
mean,
so that was all right. Surprise number two was when like all right, the face hugger is on Kane for this duration of figuring everything out. They're trying to test on this friggin' alien, finding out that it bleeds acid and all this other stuff. And all of a sudden they go to eat, they take a break, and then all of a sudden this face hugger is gone, can't find it, and then Kane's laying there perfectly fine, he can breathe just fine, he wakes up eventually, and then everybody's like, oh yeah, he's just fine, let's not do an X-ray or an
Yeah.
MRI
Yeah.
or anything on
Yeah.
this mother, let's not do that, let's go eat, he's hungry, he just wants some food. Let's not give him an IV or nothing. Let's put him around everyone. So let's break some more rules.
yeah, and I think that might be somewhat of a plot hole with this, and that's where I was like, because they didn't want to give away other stuff that happens later. I think, and I think they would have if they would have
Yeah,
like
if they would have done an X-ray, they would have.
done anything.
There would have
Yeah,
been no
Yeah.
surprise. There would have been no nothing.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
sure, I don't think they necessarily needed to go into the mess hall to do this. You know what I mean? It probably would have been just as shocking for them to be like all of a sudden checking his heart, and they're like, "Oh, there are 2 heartbeats," and he's like, "What?" And he's like, "Rah!"
Yeah.
Rages
Well, yeah,
out and explodes
but
out of his chest.
but how
Like,
much of that? Well, and I don't want to because we'll talk about it later. But how much was that they just didn't tell? Like the science officer may have already known and just wasn't saying anything.
oh yeah, I think
True
he
that.
knew
Yeah.
from the beginning. Yes,
So
but
I mean,
you didn't. At this point, we don't know.
yeah.
But
Well, and that's why I'm
all you
saying
do
that
know is
if
they're
the
making a bunch of dumbass decisions,
yeah,
and it's like,
and this is conversely, Josh, you didn't see what we talked about on Tuesday on Friday, but
mm,
that movie was brilliant in terms of
oh yeah,
she did everything that you would envision that you would do in the same situation. So
Hmm.
this movie was like the normal ones where they did shit. You're like,
or
what?
at
Why would
least
they?
what we think a woman would
Yeah,
do in that situation. Like, of course, we
yeah,
wouldn't
Yeah.
act the same way, but it was like it was a true to situation, which you should watch the movie, Josh. We were saying it on the
Yeah.
podcast. It was actually, it was like Jeremy said, quite brilliant. So, uh, anyway, so where are we now? We're at Kane, Alien,
yeah,
popping out
we're
of
at
We're
the
the
chest.
just
cane
past Kane. Yeah.
popping out
And
of his chest.
yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's probably one of my favorite parts. And
Yeah.
what's his name? What's the actor's name? I forgot.
John
It's
Hurt.
oh, that's John Hurt. All
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's why I was saying that for
the way that
it's
he
funny.
acted that scene was great.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You truly thought he was choking. I can tell you
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
something was happening
So
to
he
him
was
Yeah.
because
choking,
it was.
and then he was yeah, the way he was convulsing and everything else. And the thing that stood out in my mind is when the alien's already popped out of his chest, and he's like, because they had a weird motorized thing. I don't know if it was somebody under the table like twisting this pole with the alien on it or what, but like you see him
Hmm.
like turn, but then in the background is John Hurt's hands just going. His eyes are closed, and then his hands are going. Like he was
Yeah,
still alive, like
yeah,
still in
yeah,
pain, like
yeah. I
just
know.
wiggling, like, oh,
Yeah,
just kill me already. Like it was
yeah.
pretty
And I
nuts.
don't know. You could hear the. I don't know if you guys could hear it, but you could hear his heart beating in the background.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I never picked that up before. I picked it up tonight. So in the previous times that I had watched it,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
this
mean,
was the plot hole to me
yeah,
because I don't know, my brain just works like that. As soon as they saw the one shedding of it, you knew it was going to grow, but it's like, how does
Yeah.
it go from this seven
little
inch
tiny thing.
tall
Yeah,
to 12 foot tall in like 30 minutes to an hour? It's like,
yeah,
come on, that's a massive. But I mean, you had to keep the story moving.
yeah.
There was no
Yep.
way there was no incubation period for him to like
Yeah,
grow or
and you
anything like that. So
when you think about how fast it even grew into what it was, because the thing is, you don't know the span of time that the between when Kane got the face thing until it came out of him. Because they don't really. That's the thing about the movie is you're basing it on how long the movie was, but over the
well, I
span of
mean,
time, how much?
if you think about the story itself, there was a timeline because they had 24 hours to get off the planet to repair everything to get off the planet. So, uh, uh, what was it before the alien came out? Uh, was it before or after? Is it?
I think they were in the air,
No, it was
like in the
before.
ship.
No, no, no. All right, so they got off the planet before, so there's 24 hours, so they had to transport him. So I mean, it was a very short period of time between that. Well, I guess it doesn't really say in the story, does it?
No, that's
Because
why I
the
was saying
24-hour
that
period was just while they were on the planet
was just
or the
yeah, it was
planetoid.
just at the beginning. You don't really know like between how long he was laying on the table, because
Yeah,
remember
but I
they
mean,
said
still, he was only
between
as
for
big
them to
as like 7 inches when he
yeah,
was in
well,
the
I get
body.
that, but remember, but I'm just remembering how long it would take that because Cartwright had mentioned at one point when how long it would take them to get home, and it was like 10 months to get from
Shit.
where they were at to get home. So I don't know where they were at in that terms of time between when I don't think it was very long. I'm not disputing that
Yeah, I
the
think it was a
size
short
growth
period of time
wasn't
because
fast, but
they were pretty pressed to find this thing to, you know what I mean? Once it
Because
happened, they were pressed. They're like,
the
we got to
reason
get
I
this
say
thing out.
that, well, yeah, the reason I say that though is that she said 10 months at one point in the movie, but at the end when
6
Sigourney
weeks.
takes, well, I don't want to, but when she's
Oh,
leaving,
my bad.
yeah, well, no, when she's leaving, she says something about she'll be home in 6 weeks when she's saying
Well,
something
she
into the
didn't. All
camera again.
right, she didn't say what. Screw it, man. We're going to the ending real quick. So she didn't say that it would be 6 weeks till she got home. It would. She said it's 6 weeks until I get in Federation airspace, to where hopefully she gets picked up, like her
Yeah, well,
signal gets
true,
picked up.
true,
So it's like that could have been even longer distance. So it was just six
true.
weeks to travel to in distance to for communication.
Yeah, so yeah, now we can go back to where that happened. I just wanted to specify where I was
Yeah.
thinking time frame. Well, I'm just trying to explain
Yeah, that's a really hard
the
thing. Like,
timing was because it really didn't. You're
I'm
kind of
just
making a
thinking of it
guess.
with how the characters were acting. They were really they were concentrating on getting this happen. So you're not going to wait weeks in between.
Oh, I totally agree,
Like,
and that's where I was
yeah.
saying that it's just
So it
funky
was
how.
within 24
Yeah,
hours for me.
yeah.
That's how I'm thinking of it.
Well, you would envision that unless they told you something in the story,
Hmm.
which they did not do. So that's where I was basing it on what I remember hearing. But
Yeah.
again, like you said, 6 weeks from that point could still be 8 months out from
Hmm.
Yeah.
Earth. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, after that, then it's pretty much after that thing busts out, then it's them trying to find the damn thing.
Yeah.
And
And then they do like where as they split up trying to
which
find
is
it,
another trope to
and
me,
then
which
they
I think is
have
funny.
and
I
where it
guess you would
looks
all
like
die
a
at once
cattle
if you
prod.
didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
And
yeah, they even kind of mentioned that the electrical thing that Harry Dean Stanton made. He said you don't want to touch that, and then he touched it on top of the ceiling or
yeah.
whatever.
Hmm.
But the thing is, I don't remember them ever using it.
Nope. They never
So it's
used it.
like
They got killed
I
before
remember the
that.
flamethrowers. They had everything, but I don't think they really ever used anything. Not like the
Mm-mm.
thing
Yeah.
that we talked about last week, where they used that thing every freaking minute.
Yeah.
Like they used the
But
flamethrower
the
every
big
time.
difference was the organism was able to go from thing to thing, so it was still able to like get at him. But this was just one alien. They didn't want to hurt it
Yeah, yeah,
too much to where it couldn't do things. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So it was like, but man. Anyway,
Well, I
so
would have
we're
killed the
getting to the
thing if I
first.
could, but
Who was the first death?
After Kane, it
well,
was
after Kane, it was
uh, not
The guy
Laurel,
with the
but
hat. I
it
forgot the
was the
guy's
guy
name.
with the hat. Yeah, that said right
Oh,
a bunch of
Brett.
times.
It was
yeah,
Brett.
Brett. Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
So yeah, the cat
That
guy.
whole scene was
The
cool,
cat
though.
guy is the first kill, man. That's what happens.
yeah.
He's trying to
Yeah,
find his
Joe's not
cat, and
on
then
here.
the
We would
alien's
have
like,
said
"What the
something to
fuck?"
him about that. Yeah,
Shouldn't be having a cat, man.
yeah.
No.
But I'm just trying to figure out where all this condensation was coming from. Where he was in this place where all this condensation and water's coming off, and he's like soaking it in. He's having a good old time, and then trying to find and get his cat, and then bam! This is when you
It
first see the alien in his
it
full
wasn't
12
spit
foot
from the
tall.
alien.
No,
No, no.
that was
Because
it's because
if
there
it
was
would have been
water
spit,
dripping
it would
down
have been
first. He was
gooey.
like,
Yeah.
Well, I was just throwing something out there. I wasn't saying that's what it was. I was could have been that the way
"Oh,
that spit was. I'm just
you were trying to make a joke, weren't you?
yes,
You
I
were trying to
was.
make a
Yeah,
joke."
yeah.
Oh,
And no
Jimmy.
one picked up on it except for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I figured. I figured.
Y'all hear these jokes, man?
yep. I'm a dad, man. Dad jokes.
It's not the
Anyway,
alien.
yeah,
Anyway, so the first time seeing that alien, it was sick though. Even though we still don't think it would have been that big that soon,
yeah,
it was still a sight to see. But of course, for hell, H.R. Geiger is probably one of the most renowned like visual crafters of our time. To be honest,
Yeah, and you
his
can
artwork's
literally see,
amazing.
yeah, the entire movie. You could tell who did. I mean, it would have surprised me if it wasn't him that did it. I mean, that's
Yeah,
where it was
yeah.
like, yeah, you just think of the way that was the design, and you're like, oh, that's HR. That's got to be HR Geiger. If even if you had never, well,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean,
No, no, I agree with
thing
that.
is,
Like
so it's
there
like,
was a video game that came out. I forgot what it was called, and I was like,
Scorn.
Scorn. Yeah, yeah. Before I even played it,
yeah,
I just saw a trailer for it, and I was like, that looks like H.R. Geiger style. And then,
yep,
sure enough, the artwork and everything, it was designed by him,
yep.
wasn't it? Am I wrong or
Or
am I right?
heavily
Because that
inspired.
Well, it was heavily
Heavily
inspired. Let's see who died after that. Was it because there weren't that many
it
deaths,
was
honestly,
Dallas, I
because the
think. I think
Dallas died
Dallas
and
was the
that
next
was
one
the whole, yeah, because I
because
think that
they,
was the air
yeah,
shaft part that I was referring to
yeah,
earlier.
because they were trying to cut off the alien from getting around the ship.
And then that was kind of the part I was alluding to, if you remember, in the air shaft when he sees all the spit and shit. It was kind of the same thing. That's where that's where I was kind of
Yeah,
making the joke where
hmm
he could have been bathing
my
in the.
favorite jump scare of the whole movie, though. Like, just, I mean, there
was
wasn't
the
a
next
whole
one,
lot of
huh?
jump scares, but I mean, I just really like the how he's doing the thing, and then he's like, I can't see anything, and then all of a sudden you pan the camera around, and the light hits the alien, and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, and all he does is reach a hand. Yeah,
They
yeah, that one was
didn't
good.
even have to do much. They just knew, oh, he's gone.
Yeah, so
That's
from
one
that
thing I like
standpoint,
about it. Yeah.
well, yeah, and again, it was one of those things. Well, for him, it was like close it off. Like, you knew the minute he said close off the shit, it was like, oh, he's dying.
Yeah.
Well, you,
And he was the
Or
man.
that he knew what he
Well,
was doing, but
and I wonder though, because watching this movie, back when it was made in '79, I don't know if it would have been a customary thing for Sigourney to be the lead. Like, I wonder how many people thought Tom Skerritt would have been, like,
oh yeah.
at the time.
mm,
I'm not saying anything about that, but I think it might have been a little surprising for Sigourney to make it. But the way the movie went, it didn't surprise me. But especially when he closed off the vents, I knew he was dying though. So it was like, or not the vents, the doors, and he went off by himself. The I can tell you the dumbest person for me in the whole movie was Cartwright though.
Was that the girl?
The Yeah, the one that was with Yaphet Kotto. I can't think of her name in the movie. Veronica Cartwright is her actor name, but she was
Yeah.
the one that I was talking about earlier that mentioned about the 10 months. She's been in other stuff before, or
Oh yeah.
that I remember her from, but
I remember from certain movies, but I can't remember them offhand. I know that
like
if I would
because
be like, oh yeah, that's where she was from.
because were they the next kill?
I think
Yaphet Kotto
so.
and her,
Yeah, because they
because
both
the surprise
happened at the same time. Because
because the
they only
surprise
had so
comes.
many. Oh, technically, no, it's not. It's the what's his name? The scientist dude.
Was he
But I
before
mean,
that? I
he
thought he.
wasn't a kid. They did stuff. Yeah, it was before that because
Okay.
because she got access to Mother knowing that Dallas
Okay.
died. So
Yeah.
then she was talking to it, and she was trying to find out the directive
So that
that
part was
was
the next
secret.
twist. That
Yeah,
part was the next twist. Was
which
and
essentially went into Act Three. Really, I would consider because it's literally saying that they just want the
yeah, that was
specimen,
when it
which is the
transitioned.
alien, and that's all they
Yeah,
cared about.
and they didn't care about the crew at all.
Yeah.
And
So
that and well, and that was, I think, another surprise. Like when the not only the fact that the science officer was there just to get the alien life form, right? But then you find out when they kill the dude that he's a
yeah,
damn robot. And I think that was the biggest surprise for me, because I honestly, it's not like the other ones where you could tell. Like, I think John Hurt, wasn't he? They brought him back as a robot in the later one, right?
I know that they have Bishop, but I don't think that was John Hurt though. But
Wasn't it the same guy?
Oh, I can't. I don't think it was the dude that does the knife thing in Aliens. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh no, that's Lance Hendrickson, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I knew it was a different dude.
Yeah, in the later one,
they knew they had androids. Yeah.
He's an android, but in this one, the dude didn't even act like one until that point, really, when he started throwing her around like she was.
The only difference that if you've ever watched a movie that you could notice that he kind of was the earlier scene when he's looking at the thing, he's drinking like milk-looking things. So like,
but again,
you could kind of tell that he was.
But yeah, that's because you've seen the other ones,
the
though.
White liquid but I mean, you would have to watch the movie once for you to know.
Well, you'd actually also have to have watched the later ones. Like, if you see this one first, you wouldn't have known. You would have thought that was milk. I mean, not this stuff that robots drink or whatever. Like,
I thought it was milk.
Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, if you watched Aliens with Bishop, he drank the same stuff, and that's so. It's like, if you just saw this straight off, that wouldn't have keyed you in on the fact that dude was a robot. Because he didn't even do robotic type stuff. Like, it wasn't even till that point when he started, like I said, throwing her into the walls. And then when he grabbed Yaphet Kotto a certain way on his shoulder, he had this unusual amount of strength. But then he started doing weird movements with, like, his eyes and stuff. So you knew that he was not human. Or not full, But yeah, the way they killed him was pretty awesome, I say, when they kind of ripped the whole top part of his body off.
Yeah,
and it's
part of his head is just dangling.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Then there was...
Go ahead.
Who was after?
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say who was after him.
It was the two. It was
right after that.
And then that was what I was saying. That woman was one of those horror tropes that I call it, where she wouldn't move. It kind of reminds me of the thing with the dude that had the flamethrower in his hand and would not burn the dude. Windows, I think it was.
Windows,
yeah, it reminds me of the same thing where she wouldn't do anything. So he ends up trying to save her, and then they both die.
Yeah.
So it's like he could have freaking let her just
die and then kill it,
and then killed the damn, or at least I mean, so. But that wouldn't have, continued the storyline where it ended up the way it was. But I mean, from that standpoint, after that, there was only basically that's when we move into Act 3, right?
Yeah.
Or would you say, because
I would consider Act 3 was the directive part, where like she's going against him. I think that was the start of it, and then they were like talking about blowing up the ship.
Well, that was right after that was right after this part. Right after the two died, because that's when she started running off trying to figure out what to do.
They were planning on blowing the ship. I think that's what they were doing the whole time. They were grabbing like whatever canisters that they had or something.
Well, that was a failsafe, but she didn't want to do that. That was like her last hurrah, and then she decided not to, and then Mother wouldn't stop it. Yeah. Remember, she started it, but then tried to stop it, and then the damn thing wouldn't stop. So then that's when she had to get on the escape pod, or what I call the escape pod, and my dog's up here, but the escape pod, and that's where
the shuttle.
It gets I call it escape pod because that's pretty much what it was, but it really doesn't matter what it was. It was sending her back home.
Shuttle. It was a shuttle.
Okay, whatever, Aaron. It could be a shuttle. It could be an escape pod, whatever. But from that standpoint, that's when we get to the finale, I would say, is when she's on the escape pod and she takes most of her clothes off to get into the... And this was what I wanted to point out, too, that I thought was kind of funny. I talked about earlier how everything kind of looked great. Like the space suits they had when they went on the planet and the ship. When she got on the escape pod and she got into that other space
Shuttle.
suit, it looked like a samurai suit with a helmet. Is what I felt when I looked at it. It was like a white samurai suit with a helmet. It just looked funny to me, considering how
That
everything
one
else
in
looked.
particular,
Yeah, that one suit in particular just looked kind of weird in comparison to the rest of the movie. But I mean, that's a nitpick, honestly. If I'm just nitpicking a frickin' spacesuit, because it's not like I'm an astronaut or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, so they can pretty much be however they want to design them. So, but yeah, and then ultimately at that point you find out that the alien got off the ship and is somehow camped out in this shuttle.
there we go.
Yeah.
Calling it what it is. The shuttle,
right?
And then there was the final where she.
Honestly, I couldn't. All right, here's the part that I got weirded out. Not weirded out by, but when he reaches for her when they're in the shuttle and she gets freaked out. Like, why is it not moving? Why does it not go out for her right then? He's just chilling. Like,
that's what.
She actually
that
has
was
to use. Like, I don't know what it was, or compressed air or something like that to push it out.
Yeah, and like a grappling hook to kind of push it even further because it was holding on. But yeah, I agree. Well, I thought that was odd when she first, like, it could have killed her right then.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was just like lounging over on like her bed or something. I don't know what it was sitting on.
It was inside the girder or something like that. It was in between the wall. Like, it was like shoved in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Odd.
But yeah,
I would assume hibernated,
regardless,
but
it looked
also
cool.
at the same time, I don't know.
It did. I mean, you know, I showed off stuff. You know, I'm doing these model builds at home. They just released. You could build a xenomorph. It's like a 4-foot one. It's like,
God, dude.
Yeah, of the models that I'm doing, you know. But I'm like, I don't know if I want one of those. Not a 4-foot one sitting in my house. My kids wanted me to do the Terminator one though, the exoskeleton. But they quit making that one.
That one would be cool.
But yeah, they just released the Alien one, so I just thought I'd mention
all right.
that.
So after the climax, you already said it. She opens the door to the she latches herself into the seat and then opens the airlock to where it gets pulled out and then shoots a gun at it. Hell, my favorite part was when it got trapped behind the engine and she just turned that bit on. Yeah, I was like, yeah, get it. But it's all right. But after the climax and everything like that, great movie for one. But
yeah,
out in the franchise, which one is y'all's favorite?
Aliens, hands down. That's my favorite one.
So
honestly,
number two, yeah.
Honestly, have you guys seen Alien Covenant yet?
I've already watched it.
That was my favorite one.
See, a lot of people hate that one.
Like, I have to rewatch
that's what I've heard.
But...
Yeah.
Prometheus was good too, especially if you've seen this one, because it kind of, like Aaron kind of mentioned it before, was that
I said that, like, I really liked Prometheus when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little over the top, but like her having to cut the alien baby out of herself and all this stuff. Ooh, rough, man.
Yeah,
that shit's rough.
But in terms of
actress too, she's amazing.
But in terms of this one, it was proper in starting the franchise. I would say overall the movie that I liked the most was Alien Covenant, just because of the alien aspect in that movie, because it was pretty much about them. It's almost like if you've seen Predators, it's kind of along the same line as Predators is for the Predator itself.
Yeah.
As Alien Covenant is for the aliens themselves. That's just my opinion, but I mean,
I figured eventually I was going to watch
Covenant.
It.
That's a
Alien.
new one.
And Alien Covenant.
I don't know, man. I guess it was just because it was like the first one I really watched. It was Alien Resurrection. I
I mean,
loved
I
that one.
do really like. I really do love Alien Resurrection, though.
I'd have to rewatch that one. I honestly don't
Yeah, that's the
remember
Oh,
one
it.
it's
with
so
So
good.
it's
It's so good.
uh, Winona Ryder as the android, and then
But I mean,
Ripley.
I even like the third one, and a lot of people don't like the third one.
Oh
Like,
shit,
well,
I
man,
haven't seen that one in a long
I
time.
know we've
yeah,
talked about Aliens on Sci-Fi Graveyard, but that opens up the other ones to be talked about on that one.
yeah,
Since we've
yeah,
done Alien on this one, we can always, but that's up to Joe. I'm not gonna
yeah,
They're all
hijack
super
his
entertaining.
podcast for, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, this was a great movie. I mean, I could
Yeah,
see out of, so we've watched, what is it, 11 now in this top 35, and
Yeah,
this
something like
one
that. Yeah.
to me got me the most out of the first 11. I can tell that we've watched. This one was the one I could feel my heart rate moving with this one.
hmm Well,
The other ones couldn't at
maybe it'll
all.
just keep ramping up the entire time.
Yeah,
I mean, it
well,
should. I mean, that's what the whole point is.
yeah, it'll be interesting because number 23 is the Blair Witch Project.
Uh,
Uh,
oh my
So,
yeah.
god,
yeah.
And
So,
like I said before, I'll
snotty
probably just
nose.
shit on that movie.
what you might, but I mean, that's the point of the podcast. We
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to say good or bad, good
Yeah.
things about every movie we watch.
That one
Um,
was rough, bro. I
yeah.
remember watching it.
But yeah, but we're just going through all of them, and we
I
haven't
know,
talked
I
about
know,
that
I
one
know.
yet. So it's like, it's a. We had talked about Audition a while back, right? And when we watched that movie, we had such different expectations going into it, and when we watched it, we were like, really? This is what? I mean, if you ever checked out the movie, Aaron, it's not that great, even though it got a lot of high reviews in terms of being scary and being a certain way, and neither me or Josh felt that way
Damn.
about it. But but also, so for that'll be the next one that we do in the top 35 scariest movies. But I think Friday, or
Which
we're
one?
talking about doing Blair Witch Project. That'll be number 23.
Oh, great.
And then after that is The
So
Witch.
that'll be fun.
And then 22 is The
Ooh,
Witch.
that'll be good.
And then at number 21, it's The Grudge. So, and then we get into the top, yeah.
I've seen The Grudge so many times.
Yeah, and then we get into the top 20. But I think the one we're going to talk about doing on Friday, or we're talking about Exorcist, right? The new Exorcist movie. I know we didn't do it last week, but
Yeah.
I gotta check my schedule, gentlemen.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
schedule completely changed this week, so hopefully I can still make the movie for Friday night and then do
Okay.
something. But
I mean,
if nothing else
otherwise,
has
even
come
if we
out,
could do it over the weekend, we'll just have to push back the podcast.
well,
a little
we're
bit.
trying to keep to the schedule and have those out on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the whole thing about it.
There is other movies that we could talk about doing. So people, if you make it to the end of the podcast, leave a comment of, we're also looking at possibly there's a movie called Totally Killer that came out on Amazon Prime that
Oh yeah,
is like a Back to the Future type horror movie, is what I've read about it. And then
And then
I'm
I
not
know
sure if
that
there's anything
we're
else,
talking about
but
Five Nights at Freddy's at the end of the month, which is on the
yeah, that'll
27th.
be on the 27th.
That's going to be
but,
a number one for me for the month, I think.
so,
I think we should talk about that Boogeyman movie too. Maybe, possibly, that's on Hulu.
Oh, the
That
one that
looks
came
good.
out in the summer.
Yeah, I think I saw part of the trailer. It looked like decent.
But for anybody,
mean, yeah.
So expect on Friday we'll either be talking about the new Exorcist Believer film, or we'll be talking about maybe the Amazon Prime Totally Killer movie. And then next Tuesday it'll be Blair Witch Project for the number 23 in the top 35 scariest movies according to science.
Yeah.
So, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and I didn't say my name again. I got to start doing that at the beginning of the podcast. But
That's Jeremy.
but for Scream Creeps, I'm Jeremy. Then we
I'm
got my
Josh.
brother Josh and my brother Aaron, my other brother Aaron that
My
just
other
waved.
brother from the same mother.
Yeah, I almost wanted to do if you got. And I'm aging myself, but do you guys remember the show Newhart?
No.
No.
There were two brothers named Daryl on there, and he would say, "This is my
Both of
brother
their
Daryl and
brothers.
my other brother." Yeah, there was a way he would say the names that he goes, "This is my." Anyways, the way he would say it, I contemplated doing that same thing, but I would severely date myself by doing that, so I'm not going
Yeah.
to. So I'll just from this point forward, I'll say I'm Jeremy, and this is my brother Josh, and this is my other brother Aaron. For all of us at Scream Creeps, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and we'll see you in the next episode.
Next time.
Peace.
Bye bye.